flight levels. The title of my talk is Flight Levels, the missing link to business agility. So what does the plan say? I would like to share some thoughts about flight levels and especially about what are you doing when you're actually doing flight levels. But before we start with the what, let's take a look at the why. So why should someone do something like flight levels? Well, I tried to capture the why in the book Rethinking Agile. This book is basically, it's a story about an organization, and this organization, they wanted to become agile and they started an agile transformation, and they did a lot of things, let me put it that way. So one of their main goals were that they wanted to improve their time to market, and they found the solution. Their supposed solution was cross-functional agile product teams. This means we need cross-functionality, huge reorganization, and we need to be structured in product teams, like each team is working on only one product. And the result was the time to market was increasing. So they actually got worse. And in the book, I share some stories about what the actual problem is, why it came to the point that they didn't see any improvements. And I also mentioned that they were doing flight levels afterwards, but I didn't go deeper to what was actually being done in this organization. So what are organization actually doing when they are doing flight levels? And that's exactly what I want to do in this presentation, in this talk. So the idea is I want to share some thoughts about what it means when you're doing flight levels. And I think it's the missing link when it comes to business agility. So what is flight levels actually? So flight levels for me is like a thinking model, which helps us to find out where in an organization we have to do what in order to achieve the results that we want to achieve. So it's not a recipe like, okay, you only have to do this and the reorganization and so on and so on, and then everything will be fine. It's more like an analytical tool. It really helps you to find out where in the organization the right levers are you need to pull to perform the outcome that you want to see. And when organizations are doing flight levels, they're basically establishing 5 activities on 3 levels. So let's take a look at the activities and then at the levels. 5 activities. So what are organizations doing when they are doing flight levels? Organizations, they make their work visible. I mean, you're talking quite a lot about Kanban on this conference here. So I think visualization is not a new thing, right? So make your work visible. And when you're doing flight levels, you also visualize your work. Another thing is you create focus. Create focus means usually it's never a lack of ideas what we should work on. It's more like a lack of focus. So we have too many ideas, and the result is that we start too many work and we don't get anything finished. So when you're doing flight levels, it's not only about visualization, but you also need to create focus. There are certain methods of how you can create focus. One is, for instance, WIP limit, like work in process limits. Another one could be like time boxes, sequencing work. So there are different approaches of how we can establish or create focus in our organization. But when you're doing flight levels, you're also creating focus. What else? You're establishing agile interactions. What does this mean? We want to make sure that the right people are talking about the right stuff at the right time. So it's not, I mean, all the visualization and stuff is just a means to an end, that the right people have the right conversation in front of the right conversation in front of their board, in front of their visualization. So we also establish agile interactions. We measure progress. So doing flight levels for the sake of doing flight levels is quite unsexy. We want to achieve something with it. And measuring progress is a kind of feedback loop, which tells us, are we getting closer to what we want to achieve? And step number 5, activity number 5, is that we operate and improve. And operate and improve means we are basically circling around these activities all the time because we want to improve the way how we work. So we are at the Kanban conference here. if you walk through these Agile and Campaign conference, if you walk through these 5 activities, the outcome is something like this, a board. And I think, yeah, we have seen quite a lot of these boards. So the point is, what does this have to do with flight levels? So a board is the outcome when I do something like Scrum, when I do Kanban, we build boards like this, even the design thinkers build boards. So what is the point here? Well, the point is that these 5 activities, you need to apply these 5 activities at different levels in your organization. So it's not only about the teams need to do this, we need to apply these 5 activities on different levels in our organization. And these are the flight levels actually. So if you already heard about flight levels, so that's a very quick summary of it. And then I show you more what we are doing with it. So the point is, not only the activities are important, the point is you need to apply it on different levels in your organization. That's what we call the flight levels. So flight levels basically means how high a plane is flying. So you can fly very high, then you see quite a lot of your landscape, but you don't see a lot of details. And you can fly very low, where you see a lot of details, but your vision is somehow restricted. And the same is true in organizations. In organizations, we can fly very low, like on flight level 1, which is the operational level, the teams. So I see a lot of details. I see what are the actual work items the teams are working on. Yeah, so this would be flight level 1. So the point is we need to apply these 5 activities on flight level 1. Usually you have more than only one team in an organization. So you need to apply these 5 activities on all your teams actually. Most of the time, we need to fly a little bit higher in order to create value for our customers. Because most of the time, one team alone cannot deliver to the market. It needs multiple teams where they coordinate their work in order to deliver to the market. So we need to fly a little bit higher, and that's what we call flight level 2. Flight level 2 is end-to-end coordination. So from idea to impact. The idea is that we capture the entire value creation chain and that we make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time, right? So this is the world of your products and services. And the idea is to get end-to-end coordination across multiple teams. So the point is we are connecting flight level 2 systems with flight level 1 systems, right? So if this is the world of your products and services, usually an organization has more than only one product or service. So we would see multiple flight level 2 systems in our organization emerging. And the point is we need to apply these 5 activities on these flight level 2 systems as well, not only on the team level, but also on these levels. Then there's another thing. Quite often it's the case that we have dependencies across these products and services. I guess everybody knows this. If you change something in this product, you need to change something in that product. You need to change something in the other product. So there are dependencies. If you want to manage these dependencies, we can build another board, which is again a flight level 2 board. That's something what we would call an operational portfolio board. This means we can now basically manage our dependencies across the different flows in our organization, across the different products and services. And again, also on this level, we need to apply the 5 activities. And we can fly even a little bit higher in our organization, and then we reach flight level 3, and flight level 3 is strategy. So the point is that we want to make the strategic work in our organization visible on this board. We want to align the work on the strategy, and we want to deliver the strategy. And delivering the strategy means we want to connect the flight level 3 system to the flight level 2 and flight level 1 systems. And again, here, you also need to apply your 5 activities, right? So you need to apply the 5 activities on all of these flight levels. That's the point. If you want to become agile in the market, if you want to achieve something like business agility, if you want to do, I don't know, agile software development, fair enough, build some agile software development team, but this has nothing to do with business agility. The point is when we want to act agile on the market, we need to make sure that we apply these 5 activities on all 3 flight levels. So this is like a poster, kind of what we see here. In real life, if real organizations try to implement the flight levels, it's usually never that easy. Like, okay, we have a flight level 3, then we have flight level 2, and then we have flight level 1 systems. Usually it looks a little bit more like this. That's what we call a work systems topology. So what is a work systems topology? A work systems topology basically tells you what are the flight level 1, flight level 2, and flight level 3 systems in your organization, and how are they connected, right? So you see, this looks a little bit different from the poster, what we've seen before. So we need to actually think of, okay, what systems do we actually need? So I zoom in a little bit here. So this is our real companies, what you're seeing here. And what we can see is that quite often the case that flight levels even blend together. So here we see, okay, we have something like a company wall. A company wall is a combination between the flight level 2 and flight level 3 system. Here we have some products like flight level 2 systems, which are connected to the company wall. Here we have some hybrids of a flight level 1 and flight level 2 system, which are also connected to the company wall. And we also have teams which are connected to flight level 2 systems. Except of these, they are connected to the company wall, right? So whenever we talk about the work systems topology, we try to capture all of the organization. So we're also talking about, like seen on this picture, HR, marketing, sales, the lawyers, controlling, whatever is going on in your organization. So the point is, one thing is that we understand there are 5 activities. The other thing is that we understand, okay, there are 3 flight levels. But how does this fit together? So what flight levels do I actually have to build, or sorry, what systems do I actually have to build where I apply the 5 activities on? So this is kind of a map. If I see something like this, I know, okay, we need to apply the 5 activities on this system, on this system, on this system, on all these systems, we are applying the 5 activities. That's the idea behind it. All right, so now we know our 5 activities. We know where which actually systems we need in our organization and how the systems are connected, but we need to go one step further. We need to think of what is actually the work that we are managing on these systems here. So on the company wall, for instance, are we talking about tasks here, or what is like the work type that we are using here? Well, that's what we call in flight levels land flight items. So flight items basically tells us, okay, on what flight level, what is the work item of interest on which flight level. So for instance, here we have something like stories. They are on the team level, like on a flight level 1. And we have a description like, okay, it's just short-term activities, less than 2 weeks. Epics, we're talking about on the products and on the teams, like on the flight level 2 and flight level 1, we're talking about epics. So the point is, we need to have a common understanding about what work is being managed on which flight level. Why is this important? Because we need to connect the boards. And connecting the boards works with so-called flight routes. This means on one board, you usually see multiple of these work items popping up. And now the question is, how are my flight items flying through all of these systems / boards? That's what we call flight routes. So this is, you see some example pictures here from the work systems topology I've shown you before. That's the same company, just to illustrate what it means, what are actually flight routes. So this board here is the so-called company wall. If you remember, this was this combination of a flight level 2 and flight level 3 system, and that's the dealer board. The dealer board was one flight level 2 system. This is like a product for car dealers. So this is a product actually. So how does this work now? So how are flight items flying across this board? What do we see on the company wall? On the company wall here at the start of this board, we have something like strategy information and KPIs. Yeah. So what the different products, so we have multiple of these flight level 2 systems. This is just the dealer board. You've seen there are multiple of these flight level 2 systems in this organization. What are they doing with this information? Well, they are pulling strategy and KPI information to their board from the company wall, and they basically split it up in terms of what does this mean for our product, right? Okay, so now we know, okay, this is our product strategy here, and these are the KPIs that we want to achieve. What's going next? Next, they generate a canvas out of the strategy. In their terms, I don't say this is right how they are doing it and correct. It's just like their way of doing it. And they're like, okay, a canvas is something where we try to formulate an idea. What does this actually mean? How do we get one step closer to the strategy? In their organization, a canvas, there is no time bound behind it. So a canvas could be done in 2 days or 2 years. So that's quite widespread. So that the next step, what they are doing is they are taking this canvas and they are generating so-called initiatives out of the canvas. What is an initiative? Well, in their organization, and again, I'm talking about an example here. I don't say that's how flight level suggests you have to do it. I just want to get the message across how this organization is using the flight routes. In their organization, an initiative is a piece of work actually which hits the market, which achieves impact in the market within 3 months. So we basically slice everything down to packages of 3 months, and after the 3 months we see impact in the market. So we have an initiative here. We are on a flight level 2 system. One could think that they start to work on it now, so that the work just flows to the right, but that's not what's going on here. In this organization, what they are doing is they are putting this initiative up on the company wall. Yeah, and not only this product, remember there are multiple products in this organization, so all the flight level 2 systems, they put their initiatives up to the company wall. Most of the time from the side, there are also ideas flying in, like regulations like GDPR and stuff like this that we actually have to do, right? And what's going on here now is that all these initiatives, they are in a kind of competition, right? So it's not that each product just starts working on their product, they are now in a competition. And what this organization is doing is that each quarter, like all 3 months, they have something what they would call a strategy planning. This means they try to come up with an order of these initiatives, and they try to figure out, okay, how much of this can we actually deliver across all the products. So the point is they want to prevent local optimization. So not the product optimizes itself, we are optimizing the entire organization. So in the strategy planning, we basically get a stack ranked list of initiatives that we want to deliver to the market in the next 3 months. This organization then does something what they call delivery planning. And in delivery planning, what they are doing is they're like, okay, that's nice that that's what we want to deliver to the market, but is it actually possible? So they try to come up with like dependency maps and stuff where they see, okay, can we actually do it to deliver it to the market? And if they agree and they are like, yes, that's what we can deliver in the next 3 months to the market, the delivery starts. And what does this mean? The flight level 2 systems, they now pull in the work from the flight level 3 to the flight level 2, right? So we don't push it from the flight level 3 to the flight level 1, but flight level 2 pulls the work in from the flight level 3, and then they start working on it. Remember, the flight level 2 is the board of basically the teams where we see the work of multiple teams. So that's the product boards where multiple teams are working on it. So a 3 months initiative is way too big for teams in their organization. So what they are doing is they are splitting these initiatives into epics. Epic is a size where a team can somehow grasp what they need to do. So they basically slice it down to epics. And then, that's the work for the teams actually. And that's exactly where the flight level 1 kicks in. Now, this is just a representative of a team board, of a flight level 1 board. The team takes this epic, pulls it from the flight level 2 to the flight level 1, by just creating a copy of it. Yeah. And now the team starts working on this epic, and what they're doing is they split the epic into stories, right? So the first step is take the epic, slice it down, make some stories out of it, and then the teams start to work on the stories. And that's what we call flight routes. So the point is, if you have multiple systems in your organization, you need to be aware of what work is being managed on which system and how is work actually flowing through the system, right? Through the entire organization in the end. So usually when you start with flight levels, you're not in this luxurious situation, what we see here, where we see all these boards. So usually in the beginning, you don't have any boards and visualizations. So we need to come up with something like a sketch of our flight routes. And when you take a closer look, I've only shown you, some flight routes. There are way more flight routes. So we have seen this flight routes, which start here on flight level 2, goes up to flight level 3 and down. And we have seen this flight route, which comes in on flight level 3 and goes down this path. But there are even more flight routes. So what about all the operational work? So I don't want to talk about, I don't know, bugs, small bugs or something like this on a strategy board. Doesn't make any sense, right? So there's more flight routes. The point is we need to uncover these flight routes in our organizations. Why do I think is this important, or how did it came to the point where we defined the flight routes? Well, it was born out of a solution in real life. So I was consulting an organization, and they were like, we have all these Kanban boards and Scrum boards and all this stuff in our organization built, but somehow it's not working. So I was like, okay, let's take a look. So let's bring all these boards in one workshop room. So we really literally collected all the boards from the organization, brought it into one room. So we didn't take the physical boards all the time. We also just made a sketch of the board. But the idea was to have all the boards of this organization in one workshop room. And then we tried to generate value. So what we did is I was like, okay, someone has an idea. Let's write it down. On which board does this idea pop up? We have a customer order. On which board does this actually pop up? And then we place the sticky note or the work on this board, and we tried to simulate how this work item is flying all over the boards. And guess what? In 0% of the cases, it was possible to generate value for the customer, because these guys, they were talking about stories, but these guys, they have a project plan over there. So how does this fit together? They are talking about epics, but we are talking about initiatives on this board. So in 0% of the cases, we were able to generate customer value. So I thought, like, there has to be a better way. And this is where the flight routes and also the work systems topology was being born. So the idea is, okay, let's somehow make sense out of all these boards and not just build boards and then see what's happening, right? So it needs to fit together. If you want to have more information about this particular company, there are two videos. What you can find here in this first video, we are talking about the dealer board, which was the flight level 2 board, and we see how this is working. And in this video, we are talking about the company wall, which is this combination of flight level 3 and flight level 2 board. If you're good in German, you have an advantage because the videos are in German. However, there are English subtitles, so you can at least read what we are talking here. Okay, yeah, that's what I've shown you right now. Actually, that's something what we call a flight level systems architecture. So I laid out quite some pieces. Now let's put them together and hopefully understand what flight levels is. So the flight level systems architecture consists of what we call a work systems topology. So we need to find out what work systems do we need and how are they connected. Another puzzle piece in the systems architecture is the flight items. We need to make sure to understand what work is being managed on which system. If these guys are talking about stories and they are talking about, I don't know what, tasks or epics, and they need to collaborate, you're having a hard time. So we need to find a common understanding which work items are being managed on what system. And finally, the flight routes, they tell us how these flight items are being routed in our company. So how are these items flying across our topology? And these three things, that what we call a so-called flight levels systems architecture. All right, so if I take a look what I have talked to you in the past 26 minutes, at least I hope I got the message across that when we are talking about business agility, it's not so much about methods and frameworks. It's way more about the interactions between your work systems. In flight levels, for instance, we don't care if teams are doing Scrum or Kanban from the point of view of the flight level 2 system. I just don't care. It's way more important that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. And this can be seen in all of the flight levels. So the point is, it's not so important what framework you're doing. You need a model to connect all your islands, no matter what islands these are, like what frameworks you're using, but you need to connect it together if you want to have a coherent impact in the market in the end. All right, and that's pretty much everything I wanted to say. Just one more thing. There is an online course, a self-paced online course, which is called the Flight Levels Introduction Training. If you go to flightlevels.io/Flynn and you give the voucher code FLOWCONF, you get a 20% discount for this training. That's it. Thank you.